pop in.
Good evening, and welcome to the Caring View, the online health and social care platform free to access to absolutely everybody. Before we get started, don't forget to give us a like, give us a follow, give us a share, subscribe, do whatever it is you do on social media nowadays, and follow us for our journey. Everything we do is completely free. You can access all of our resources, podcast episodes, and chat show episodes at www.thecaringview.co.uk, wonderfully powered by Jack AI. And let's actually go into our sponsors. So everything we do is free. Doesn't mean what we do is crap. It just means we're giving you for free. Social care is tight at the moment. Strings on your purses are pulled to the tightest points they can be. So why not have some stuff for free? Go and spend your money on other things. So without further ado, our fabulous sponsors who help keep the Caring View free are Prosperwell, the UK's leading digital marketing agency, www.prosperwell.co.uk. You can listen to their podcast live directly from their website, which is Tea with Toby, giving you all of their market insights and tips around how you can improve your care marketing, your recruitment marketing, home care marketing. I think they do retirement living marketing. So please do go check them out. We have Care Business Associates training for all of your healthcare training requirements, should I say. www.cbassociatetraining.co.uk. Please do go check out their train the trainer courses and their chaps course as well. Absolutely fabulous training services. We've got Attis Care by Attis Insurance Brokers for all of your comprehensive care coverage and proactive risk management. And Attis aren't just about insurance, they're there about supporting you. They've got a platform for care providers which covers elderly, specialist, home care, charities, and they leverage their existing knowledge to help navigate the daily challenges of the sector. So please do go check them out. We have Log My Care, the intuitive care management platform loved by comprehensive care providers around the country, www.logmycare.co.uk. Go search them on Google, go pop in their website, and give them a try. We keep saying this, so Sam and the team at Log My Care tell us if we're wrong, but we think you still have a freemium version, but you can also go and book a demo as well. They will hold your hand through the transition to paper to digital records. So totally go and check them out. We have Health Automated Online, and we have Enlearningment, which is www.enlearn.online. Health Automated, run by the fabulous Jack White, also built our website for us. So please do go check them out. Very AI heavy, very intuitive platforms. Definitely there to help support you as care providers and to make things easier, to make things quicker, to make things more bespoke to you. So please do go check them out. I feel like we've got loads of these. We've got Florence, directly connecting healthcare professionals and organizations with shifts and training around the country. I say this every week, but they are fabulous, better than using an agency. You can see who's coming to you, download their profiles, check their training, and favorite people. My favorite thing about this is you can actually favorite the team that are coming to you from Florence. So if you like them, book them again. And if you've got someone that's naff, you can say, don't want them coming again, and they feed back to them and they get retrained. It's amazing. And a wonderful e-learning platform there as well. Last but not least, we have UK Care Week. Forgive me, I'm struggling to find my link for UK Care Week. Here we go. UK Care, gremlins tonight. Mark and I are trying to do the same thing. UK Care Week, 19th and 20th of March this year at Birmingham NEC. Completely free to register. Please do go check them out. Go register and join us. We have 2 days worth of content for you at UK Care Week. Come and meet us in person. Not that, anything special to come and meet us, but we love to meet the people who listen to the Caring View. You get to meet the fabulous people like Sharon MacArthur, who will be joining us on stage, delivering really insightful talks with key takeaways and hopefully a resource or two for you to be able to go and implement straight away into your services. So that is ukcareweek.com, 19th and 20th of March, completely free to register. Good evening, Mark. How are you?
Yes, not too bad. Thank you. You?
I'm good, thank you very much. 4 minutes for the intro, not so bad today.
You're getting there. You're getting there.
Get in there. We are joined tonight by the fabulous Sharon MacArthur, aka Miss Menopause. Welcome back to the show, Sharon. It's been a couple of years, I think, since you were last on the show. How the devil are you?
I'm fine, but I'm loaded with cold. So I was saying earlier, I do sound like Bonnie Tyler for anyone who's old enough to remember that. But yeah, I have dulcet tones this evening, so hopefully I won't have a choking fit, but it'll all be well. But yeah, I'm good.
Oh, I love the cold. Did anyone remember that episode of Friends where Phoebe had a cold and sounded really sexy when she was singing, then she got better, so she tried to get a cold again, so she sounded really sort of like sultry. There's something about Tyler's raspy voice that, just does it for me.
I'll take it.
So Sharon, for those who might have missed your previous episode on The Caring View or don't know about you, tell us a bit about who you are and where you're from.
Well, my name is Sharon MacArthur and my company name is Miss Menopause. So despite the vicious rumours where a lot of people still think I'm a middle-aged Mr. Man character, I did come up with the idea for Miss Menopause because the menopause is being missed. See what I did there? I can hardly believe it, but I've been doing this for over 7 years now. And when I set up Miss Menopause, nobody wanted to talk to me about menopause in the workplace. And now I think I'm a genius with my tongue firmly in my cheek. And my mission really, I'm a rubbish businesswoman, let it be known. And one day I'd like to be made redundant. That's my ambition, because that would mean that menopause was just business as usual. So my mission, that's what it is, just to make menopause business as usual. And I think why I still remain so passionately about the subject is because menopause impacts everybody. But in particular industries like the caring world, the caring profession, you tend to find that it's more gendered in female, more females in that profession. So what I ask companies to consider is there's a time bomb that's ticking when you're talking about health and well-being, when you're talking about an aging workforce, an aging population, when you're struggling to recruit. And if you have more gendered female in your business or your industry in particular, then the time bomb potentially is even bigger than you might imagine. And a lot of people, so I'm going to pick on white middle-aged men just because I feel like I want to this evening. And all I'll say is mostly the world seems to be run by white middle-aged men, does it not? So, when we're running a business, businesses are there to make money and profit. So you might be a white middle-aged man. This isn't a criticism. That's who you are. And maybe you run a business in the caring profession. And of course, ultimately, if you're in business, I'm in business. I'm there. I'm not a charity. I'm there to make money. So you might be thinking, well, this doesn't really impact me. It's not really a thing. I don't need to know. I care about it. Well, let me tell you, menopause is in your business today. It will be in your business tomorrow. It'll be there forever. And it is and will continue to impact your bottom line, your profitability, how productive people are, sickness and absence, a whole host of things. So, I hope that whoever's listening, especially if you're a figure of authority in your particular business, that you'll really stop to consider that menopause isn't a fluffy thing. It's not for women of a certain age. It's not a nice to have. It actually cuts across anything to do with health and well-being, and it also cuts across anything to do with AD&I initiatives that you might be running. So I really would like everybody to take an interest in the subject, just because if I give you this statistic, so wait for it, 100% of reproducing females on the planet will become menopausal at some point in their lifetime. So every single reproducing female, whether they like it or not, will go through menopause. So even if you won a few spare million on the lottery and you thought, ooh, I don't fancy that menopause thing, tough. Menopause will be coming to a body near you at some point, whether you like it or not. So I say this quite a lot, when I'm working up and down the country. I'm sure a lot of your listeners will have been doing things around mental health and well-being. Quite rightly so. Of course you're going to do that. Why wouldn't you do that? Invest in health and well-being in your workplace. But I hope that most people like me would hope and wish that the smallest percentage of any of your workplaces might suffer from, we'll call it mental ill health. So let's do an experiment. Let's put mental ill health in the ring with menopause It's going to be a full-scale knockdown every single time by menopause, because what percent is menopause? Well, it's 100%. Exactly. So there's no competition. There's just no competition. So that is why I hope that companies, rather than thinking, oh, we've done that health and well-being stuff, or we've done that thing there, do you not need to make something like, for example, menopause part of the DNA of your business? Because I'd like to think if you spend, it costs so much to recruit and retain the talent that you have, you don't want to lose them. So I'd like to think if you're a good employer, you'd want your people to be with you for as many years as possible that they could be with you. So, like I say, we've got an aging workforce, an aging population. And I know you'll not believe this, but this year I will be turning 57 years old. Now, I thought I'd be dead by now. I know, can you believe it? I can't believe it. But when I was growing up, I was led to believe that I'd get my hands on what we still refer to today as a state pension. Now, in 2010, the government at the time did a full-scale review of everybody's pensionable age. So what that meant for somebody of my age of 57, soon to be, and my pensionable age has gone from 60 to 67. So I was reading this horrible article, and I'm hoping that it's one of these made-up things that appear on social media. And that's what I'm hoping. But if it's not, it was saying that the government are considering in the UK, and this isn't just a UK thing, it's a worldwide phenomenon, by the way, but they're considering that anybody born from 1970s onwards may have a pensionable age to 71. It might be extended to 71. Exactly, Adam. So what I'm saying is pensionable ages are only going one direction. That's up. So we've almost got this perfect storm that we're having to work longer full time than ever before in history. And that trend is only set to continue. So that means women living, working with and through menopause longer than they've ever had to. And that, like I say, if that 71's turn, comes true, then what does that mean for your workforce? So think about it like this. There's a horrible thing that I say, so I'm going to say it again. I mean, it's true, but it is quite horrible. But think about it like this. No human ages more well. No human ages more well. So if your workforce is going to have to work into their 60s, perhaps now into their 70s in the near future, then you want your workforce to be as well as they can be, and getting them to learn about menopause, as well as wrapping your arms around some simple, easy things that you can do that exist in your business right now. What business person wouldn't want to do that? Because that would just be sensible and logical. Why would you not want to do that? So that's what I see.
I'm already in awe. I'm already in, and I know we're going to get so much great content from you tonight, Sharon. I know that the conversation is going to be fabulous. I'm sorry if you are a straight white man. Sucks to be you. You can't all be fabulous. No, I'm joking. Don't sue me. But it is definitely that sort of, especially in social care where the majority of the workforce is female, to have so many decisions being made by men. Our Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, straight white man. Our Prime Minister, straight white man, heaven forbid. And, we do get a female Prime Minister. And to be fair, as much as she screwed everything up, she wasn't really handed the best deck of cards to play with. It was sort of like, let's put her in that position and then we'll come in and swoop and fix stuff. And all these decisions are being made about, let's look at America, Roe versus Wade and the overturning of the abortions. And that is, let's make a decision about women's bodies, about them, without them. And we can't be in that position, and especially in our workplaces. We need to really be more mindful and attuned to this. Mark,
it makes business sense. I'm just going to say it just makes business sense. So I want any of the people out there who are in positions of authority, whoever you might be, that if you listen to this, session today, that you'll hopefully maybe come away with a greater sense of just why wouldn't you do some stuff that could make you more profitable? Because if you're in business, that's what you want, to be more profitable, to make more money. And you can do this by wrapping your arms around menopause in a quick and dirty, easy fashion, which maybe is what might be putting you off right now. You're thinking, that's far too much of things to do. So, I'm all about simplicity. So yeah, Mark, it will be good to hear from you. What's your thought? What's running through your head at the moment?
Well, I'm not going to lie, it's that we need to get a show on pensions, because if that pension age goes up to 71, I'm cancelling mine, because I don't plan to be alive when I'm 71. So I need to keep spending that money that I'm putting aside right now. No, serious talk though. I just kind of wondered what the current state of play is that you're seeing within organisations, ones that you're already working with, ones that are approaching you to be working with. Just because listening to you there is so much awareness out there around menopause. It's all over the NHS. It's spoken about so much. And it just baffles me as to why organisations are getting it so wrong, because it's not like the information's not out there. And it's not even like it's kind of tied up in legislation and really long documents. There's so much tangible, easy to read, easy to digest documentation out there.
I think, and again, we were kind of talking about this earlier, I think the political landscape shifted quite a lot in the last kind of 6 to 12 months. And I do get a sense, and I totally get it. You know, I used to be a senior leader in a FTSE 100 company. I understand commercial businesses and all the rest of it. So what I do think has happened is I think Brexit has hit really hard. So at the end of 2023, any European funding that was still sloshing around, albeit 6 years later, was ended. It was like hard stop at that point. So all of that money just instantly vanished. Whether there was still money in the pot, it had to go. So that was the first thing. And then, you know, we've had fundamental basic things like gas and electric's gone through the roof. So you might have been a business who said, I've got this money here for these, you know, maybe what you might class nice to have or to help our staff. And maybe you've fallen on much more hard times where the gas and electricity's gone through the roof and you've had to pull that extra money to survive in your business. I totally get that. And then I think things like NI have hit, you know, minimum wage and all of those types of things. So I just feel it's a bit of a perfect storm. And then politically, you've got people like, you know, the US president, I will not name him, but I think you know who I'm talking about, who has almost come in on day one and said, AD&I doesn't matter, let's do a hard stop on the first or second day, whatever it was. And I just think, you know, a lot of people might be thinking, oh, we don't need to do that now. Let's mirror what's happening there. Let's think that this is, maybe also think, this is done now. We've done that. We've done some work around menopause. What I would say is, from my perspective, the world hasn't changed an awful lot in 7 years. Women it's really interesting because women, and I was exactly the same as this. I didn't know I care about menopause till it happened to me, because I had this misguided idea that whatever it was, because I wasn't very clear, wasn't going to happen to me. Now, let me tell you a bit of my story. So at the age of
Oh, you left us on a cliffhanger there, Sharon.
Did it go?
Oh,
We've got you back.
There you go. So what did he hear up to? So I said at the age of
40... You were just about to tell us the riveting story about your background and how it affected you.
Right. So, yeah. So I'm saying at the age of 14, I knew that I wasn't cut out to be a parent. Don't ask me how I knew that, but I had this sense that was the case. And I remember my nana having a conversation with me in her backyard, I think it was, saying, Sharon, what about the family you're going to have when you were old? And I remember saying, nana, I'm not going to have any children. Yeah. Now, her direct response to me was, who will look after you when you are old? And I said, I'll be dead when I'm old, Nana. And now here I am. I'm older than she was at the time. And she looked really old, let me tell you. But sorry, Nana, but they did in those days. So I knew growing up, I wasn't going to suffer from postnatal depression, postpartum psychosis, or any stuff to do with hormones and pregnancy. So I had this real belief that whatever that menopause thing was, whatever it was, because I didn't really know, that it wasn't going to happen to me because I hadn't shaken up my hormones through pregnancy. And all I can tell you about part of my story is menopause nearly killed me because I fell asleep at the wheel of my car when I was driving at speed because I was so sleep deprived. I just could no longer sleep when my menopause hit. So, I was a senior leader in a FTSE 100 company, so I used to think I was really smart, that I was really streetwise, that I knew a lot of things about a lot of things. So when one of my very best friends said to me at the age, I was about 47, 48, Sharon, do you not think you're menopausal? I was outraged. I was like, how dare you think that could happen to me? Because in my mind's eye, and I'm going to ask for all of the listeners to forgive me, please forgive me, because I'm going to say something which is utterly terrible and quite terrifying, so please forgive me. Because if you'd asked me to describe a menopausal woman before I knew any of this stuff, I would have said a woman, at least in their 80s, who probably had not worked for at least 20 years and had not one, but probably at least a couple of mobility aids. That was what I believed a menopausal woman to be like. So growing up, there was no talk. So I'll tell you what I learned about menopause. So I'd heard of these things called hot flushes. So that's quite a common thing. You might have heard of the two. Hot flushes sounds like nothing, but nobody tells you when you're having one that you can't escape your own body. So there would have been many times over the last few years where I would have tried to rip my top open and put my boobs against a cold window, which, let's be honest, in the workplace wouldn't particularly be appropriate, would it? And then the only other thing that I can remember was coming from my grandma, who would often be found whispering around corners that apparently she and all of her friends were going through something called the change. And so it was always whispered, the change. And I was genuinely terrified that I might meet some of these, my grandma's friends, in the night, because apparently they were changing into something, but nobody ever took the time to explain what they were changing into. And so really that was my only extent of knowledge about this subject of menopause. I knew it was a thing and it was somewhere over there and it probably wasn't going to happen to me. So I was quite astonished and surprised to be finding that it was happening to me. And then I was even more surprised to find that actually it happens to every reproducing female on the planet. And then I was like, it felt like before I set up Miss Menopause, there was literally a handful of people talking about it. And I felt at one point like it was like the King's New Clothes story, that I was one of the only people who could see that perhaps this was going to be an issue. And also, if you think about it generationally, so if I look at me grandma, God rest her soul, she would have been over 100, and I look at me mum's generation, so in my grandma's time, my grandma's generation, they didn't do paid work often. They were housewives, which is a really hard job, by the way, but they didn't go out and get paid work. My mother's generation, if they worked at all, they possibly worked part-time. So their biggest stressor might have been, would they boil the potatoes over for the tea going through their menopause? So they could potentially lie down, have a rest, and get on with whatever they were doing. So most women in the 21st century now usually have to work full-time. They have to work. And if you're, in a household, if you've got two adult humans in that household, normally both of them have to go out to work just to survive these days, because everything's so bloody expensive. So we've kind of got this perfect storm. We've got the fact that every single reproducing female you can't opt out of menopause. It happens to most women from 40s onwards. We're now having to work longer than ever before in history. That trend's set to continue. So I can't think of a more deserving subject that you'd want to learn or find out about, that you could which would help you make this topic business as usual, so you could be as profitable as possible, so you could attract more people, you could retain the good ones that you find. That is why I am still passionately involved in the subject, because I truly believe in all of the things that I'm saying, and I haven't found anyone who's been able to dispute that. I get money's tight, I get money's being siphoned off for other things, and it's nobody's fault. But at some point when you can take a breath and maybe money comes back on the table, I want you to be more clear about what the benefit of educating yourself and your workforce might be about the subject of menopause, because it impacts everybody. And more importantly, the reason I started in the last 12 months, I would say, I've been doing lots and lots of work in manufacturing. Now, manufacturing is hysterically full of white middle-aged men who are, I'm going to call them maybe hairy ass men. That's what I'm going to say. No, not being disparaging. That is a genuine, kind reference. So I met fabulous men, but when you rock up to a manufacturing site, a lot of the men will go, well, they look around and go, well, we don't work with any women. We don't need to know about that. But what I'm saying is, women of the world, we are insidious. We're everywhere. There's no escape. So we could be colleagues, we could be friends, we could be family members. If you identify as male heterosexual, the chances are you will be going home to a menopausal wife, partner, or girlfriend at some point in your lifetime. And you may even have daughters, but you'll have mothers, you might have sisters. So every one of those women in your life will be encountering menopause. We can't opt out of it. We can't wake up and go, I don't fancy that today. Remember, it's going to happen. And the other thing that you need to know about menopause, it truly is the gift that keeps on giving, let me tell you. Once you're menopausal for the rest of your life. Woohoo! So whatever age your fertility ends through menopause, you are menopausal for the rest of your life. And then there's this other horrible statistic out there, which says that 1 in 100 women under the age of 40 will become menopausal. So we've got to get away from this idea that menopause only happens. This is my least favorite phrase, let me tell you, women of a certain age. What does that mean anyway? What does it mean? And the saddest case that I've read about was a young girl of 12. Now, that's exceptional, but it just goes to prove and demonstrate that technically menopause could happen to women at any age. So, like I say, I want people to understand and think of this. I love a metaphor. Think of menopause as having tentacles that reach into the corners of every single person's life. And I don't believe this information can harm anybody, but I truly believe it can help absolutely everybody. So I've had probably the most profound feedback I've had over the years has been from men. Now, often left to their own devices, they say the subject of menopause and would think, well, that's got nothing to do with me. I don't need to know that. But when I've had men come along with the sessions that I run in companies face to face on, over the internet, what have you, they've often said, Sharon, I didn't want to come to your session, but now I'm here. Now I've learned what you had to say. It's probably been one of the most useful things that I've ever done, because I know I wouldn't have done this level of research. And when I've had men telling me this information has helped to save their marriage or their relationship, that is, to me, how you know you're working with an employer of choice. And I'm a fan of never ever wasting time. Like I say, I'm 57 this year. I could be dead tomorrow. I'm not in the habit of wasting your time. Least of all, I'm in the habit of wasting my own time. So I always say, unless it counts for something, let's not do it. Let's not do it at all. Let's not waste each other's time if it doesn't count for something. And, menopause, I can guarantee, because there's, when you transact something, so we're transacting time potentially. So you think, well, I've got maybe a couple of hours of my time I need to give up to go to this thing. The work's piling up. Nobody's time rich anymore. We're all exceptionally time poor. There's never enough time to do the things that we need to and we want to do. So the stuff's building up, time's poor. So if you're going to give up some time, it has to count for something. So I'm very clear that I know that if you choose to come and spend that valuable time, I can give you some stuff, some information, some knowledge that you can take, whether that's take it back into your workplace or you can take it home. Because that's the brilliant thing about learning about the subject of menopause. Once you've learned about it, you can take that information wherever you need to take it. It doesn't have to remain in the workplace. You can take it anywhere. And what's become rather terrifying in the last 7 years is, because I'm doing a lot of work with men about menopause, they are going home and taking that information home to their wives, partners and girlfriends. And I'm now getting some it's great feedback, but it's rather terrifying where men are contacting me and saying, Sharon, because of your session, I've gone home and spoken to my wife, partner, mother, whatever. I appear to know more about menopause than they do. So what I would say is, don't think that women are born with an inherent built-in ability to manage menopause. I always say to men of the world, look, we aren't taught how to manage periods. We aren't taught how to give birth. We aren't taught how to manage menopause at all. We don't know this stuff. I know you don't know it, but don't have this misguided idea that we are born knowing this. We're not like birds. We don't know how to build a nest. We're not born like that. So we have to live through it and we're as much in the dark as you are. So what I'm saying is, if we all learn together at the same time, so I'm very much of a fan in the work that I do, because I think building trust in a business is one of the most important things that you can do. So I'm very much of a mindset of, well, because I know this is ridiculous, isn't it, lads? Because it's the 21st century, we shouldn't be saying it's a new subject, but it kind of is. Because it's such a new subject, wouldn't it be great if we all just learned together that this information that I'm going to provide, you come, whether you're the guy in charge, whether you're a senior manager, whether you're the cleaner in your business, anybody and everybody can come and all hear the same information. So isn't that brilliant that you can all come together and there's no secrecy between. How awful, maybe you've worked in places like this, I know I have, where maybe as a manager, they have a separate secret session that you perhaps don't have. And you I wonder what they're getting that I'm not getting. So wouldn't it be great if everyone just learned together so we could have an open, honest adult conversation? There was no secrets, there was nothing to hide. We're all learning the same information together. And that's very much what I feel I've learned from my business career, that if you can build trust and a level of empathy and understanding, that goes a hell of a long way to making you, a good place to work.
Yeah. I mean, listening to everything you're saying, Sharon, it is quite shocking that we are talking about it still like it is a new subject. And I suppose what shocks me the most, and I promise I'm not going to derail the show. I usually do this where I go and talk about a million things, but I'm going to keep us on track tonight. But I suppose whilst we're all still learning about menopause, which has been around since day one, like Adam and Eve, but we're just learning about it now, the world's changing around us as well. So it's like you say, 100% of reproducing females are going to go through the menopause. And we need to remember that actually that also includes trans men who were female and have transitioned. And if they have their ovaries and everything removed, they could go through premature menopause. Intersex people who have got variations in sexual characteristics will likely go through menopause if they menstruate. And it's not, it's about understanding everything without that fear of being woke, if you will, and being inclusive.
Well, the interesting thing, and I'm really pleased you've touched upon that subject, because I do always touch upon that in the work that I do. So I would say a trans man, depending on the surgeries and the hormones that individual has elected to take or have, they could encounter menopause. They could still technically go through menopause. And a trans woman, although they technically can't encounter the same menopause as, somebody born female, depending again on the surgeries and the hormones that it's because it's individualized to that person has elected to take or have, they could encounter very, very similar symptoms to that of menopause. And an interesting point for all men who might be on this call today, and for everybody else who loves, cares and respects men in their lives, did you know that often the treatment of prostate cancer is the administration of female hormones? So I had a woman about 6 months ago, I suppose it's a bit sad, she told me her and her husband are now on the exact same hormones. So he's getting night sweats, brain fog, anxiety, and somebody in the room said, Sharon, should all men not have it? And I was like, I think that's a bit unethical, don't you? But you might be a guy thinking, I don't even know about that, but you'd want to know about it if, so get yourself checked, men in the world, don't let that happen to you. But if you have, if you do end up with something like prostate cancer, you need to be aware that the treatment could put you into effectively what is equivalent to a menopause, because you will have a similar range of symptoms to that of a menopausal woman. So what I'm saying is exactly what I said earlier, Adam. Every single person in the world, whoever you are, will encounter menopause, whether directly or indirectly, seen or unseen. So again, you might be looking around your business and going, well, I don't think this. I'll tell you an interesting story. I had when I very first started out, it was a woman actually. And I went into this business and I was talking about, menopause and why it was a business issue and all the rest of it. And she went, no, there's nothing like that here. There's no menopause here. And I went, all right, okay. She went, we report on all of these things and there's no menopause here. And I said, I'm going to bet you £1 million Geordie pounds that you are not reporting on menopause. I don't think in your system, in your HR system, whatever you're using, there will be a drop-down box. This is like 7-8 years ago now. She went, no, I'm telling you, it just isn't here because it will be. So all I'm going to say is, I don't often lose, and who was right? I don't because there wasn't a drop-down box, because no of us had even thought of it. So don't think, as I said earlier, don't think menopause isn't there because maybe you've never heard anybody mention it, or you've never heard anybody talking about it. So think about it. Let's talk about male colleagues. So male colleagues maybe some of them identify as male heterosexual, going home to menopausal wives, partners and girlfriends. So forget even the workplace. So what about those men who are going home to menopausal wives, partners and girlfriends who are no longer sleeping? It's a thing. It's quite a common thing. So what health and safety risk are there if they're operating equipment, machinery? Maybe they're having to do some deep level thinking. What about those male colleagues who are, if you care about your people, they're saying, I'm anxious, I'm worried, I'm concerned. And the root cause is their relationship is falling apart at home. And at the heart of it is menopause. So I met this guy last year, actually, and he came to see me at the end of a session. He said, Sharon, when you were talking, he said, I had light bulbs going off in my head. He said, but I feel really sad because I only wish I'd met you about 3 years ago, because I truly believe it's the reason my 27-year-old marriage has ended, because I didn't know anything about it, and clearly neither did my wife. So on every level, this information can't harm you, but I truly believe it can help you. And then what about young people? What business can survive without, new people, young people coming into the industry? So, I was working in a company, this is several years ago now, and it was a young woman. She was really quiet throughout the session until eventually she went, Sharon, do you know what? I think my mum might be going through the menopause. And what's really interesting about that is often we will spot signs in others long before they spot signs in themselves. And the other thing about young people is often now it's so bloody expensive to leave home. Young people are spending longer in their family homes than they ever have done for a long time in history. So she said, she was about in her early 20s. She went, when I left for work this morning, my mum threw a butter dish at my head. And I was like, well, that's not a common symptom of menopause that I've come across. However, I take your point. She shouts at me. She went, I love her to bits, but I don't want to spend any time with her. She's totally changed. She's like not the mother I knew. So all because this younger woman came to a session about menopause, she was able to go home and have an open, honest adult conversation with her mum, who didn't know she was in the early stages of menopause. That's really, really common. She was able to encourage her mother to go down what I call a medical route. Her mother ended up on HRT. So think about it like this. All because a younger woman came to a session about menopause, not only is she more prepared for her own menopause, as and when the time comes, it transformed the relationship between her and her mum. So you now have a much happier, more engaged employee, all because she came to a session about menopause. So remember, it's got tentacles that reach into the corners of every single person's life. And then what I really love about working with the care industry, the NHS, etc., is I always say, as experts in your field, if you learn about this subject, you get a double win. Because if you've learned about this for yourself in your own business, as the experts in your business, what could you do with this information in terms of passing it on to the people who you're working with if you needed to? So how could you take the information and give it back to those people who you care for if they need that information? So that's another way to look at it. You get a double bite of the cherry because you can take the information and you can pass it on. And why would you not want to do? Why would you not want to do that?
I mean, honestly, definitely. And so just 2 pointers, just from me before I ask a question and then run over to Mark is, just so everyone knows, it's not okay to ask a trans woman or a trans man what surgeries they've had unless they divulge it, because there's so many people go, oh, what have you had done? It's not cool. We don't do it. So just bear that in mind. If you've got trans people in your service, invite them to whatever menopause assessment you would do and let them divulge what they want to divulge. Secondly, and we're not going to discuss it tonight because I don't want to make it about men, but there is such thing called andropause as well.
Yes.
Or testosterone deficiency syndrome, I think is its proper term, or its other term, which isn't technically menopause, but erectile dysfunction, fatigue, mood swings, brain fog, cognitive decline, happens in men. So we don't get off scot-free. There is something that we need to consider for ourselves as well. And if we're going to want that sort of support later on in life, let's give it to the women first, yeah?
Yeah, and what I would say is, thanks for highlighting that, Adam. Andropause, I do think somebody's making a lot of money from branding it the male menopause, by the way. So that's my term on it. So a little bit about that. It's estimated that 10% of men if it could suffer from those types of things. But my message whenever I'm working with any company, whoever turns up to my sessions is, and this is a gift I want to give everybody today. The gift is this. is whatever it is, and today we happen to be talking about menopause, but you can take this gift and you can apply it to many other things. But so is menopause negatively impacting the quality of my life or of your life? And if anybody answers yes to that question, doing nothing shouldn't be an option. And that is the best gift you could give to either yourself. You might be asking yourself that question: is this negatively impacting whatever it is, the quality of my life? And if the answer is yes, doing nothing shouldn't be an option. Or you could be a colleague, a friend, a family member. Is whatever you're telling me about negatively impacting you? And if the answer is yes, don't do nothing.
Yeah. So I want to ask you a question, and I'm going to add a little bit onto the end of it, which is sort of not related, but I want to know the answer. So,
okay.
What are some of the reasonable adjustments we could be considering in our workplaces for people going through the menopause? And what's the legality of the recognition of menopause? So I think the last time we spoke, it's not legally recognized as a sort of protected characteristic. So is that something that we should be advocating for? And what reasonable adjustments can we make in the workplace? See, they're not related, but I want to know both answers.
I'll start. The one I quote most often, because there is like a Health and Safety Act. I think it's the Health and Safety Act 1974, but that's 1974. So let's talk about the Equality Act 2010. So the Equality Act 2010, is menopause covered? Well, technically, no, but I say yes. So hear me out as to why I say what I say. So menopause absolutely does not have its own protected characteristic. It doesn't. And you know what? Controversially, I would say I don't think it should, because if it needs its own protected characteristic, then the Equality Act is rubbish. It's not fit for purpose. Because under the umbrella headings of age, sex, disability, there's also a trans category. Menopause technically could sit under those umbrella headings. And the very first tribunal that was won and brought was one, I've lost track of time with COVID, but maybe it was 6, 7, it might have been longer than that, years ago in Glasgow, was one on the basis of disability. And that's because if anything impedes you in the workplace for more than 12 consecutive calendar months, it could be categorized or classified as a disability. Now, the brilliant news is I've never met anybody who wants to be classified as disabled going through menopause. Neither have I met yet anybody who's got on their bucket list, can't wait to go to a tribunal, said nobody I've met ever yet anyway. So what I'm saying is, organizationally and operationally, if your intention is just to make menopause business as usual, then it should be so far in the distance, it's become incidental. And my philosophy is we should be able to say, shouldn't we, hand, foot, vagina, penis in a sentence without going, oh, and having an attack of the vapors, because we've all got bodies, and we've all got body parts, and in the main, they do us really well. And if we're working in an adult environment, then we should be able to behave like the adults that we are. Now, the brilliant thing is, Adam, when I'm talking about menopause is, I think personally in this industry, there has been, and maybe continues to be, maybe a lot of fear and complexity being sold into this space. Controversially, I'm going to say most of the things that people might say you need, I'm saying I don't think you need at all. So the first thing is, I would say I don't think you need a particularly separate policy, process, whatever you call it in your business, guidelines, whatever. Do you need a policy for menopause? I'm saying I don't think you do. And I'm saying that for a couple of reasons. So the first reason is most companies now would want to say about themselves that they are inclusive employers. Absolutely the right way to go. We are an inclusive employer. But what I'm saying is, if you write a standalone menopause policy, could you be in danger of becoming an exclusive employer? Because have you written a policy for John in accounts who's got diabetes? Have you written a policy for Joan who's got cancer? Not a very popular policy, is it? So what I'm saying is, unless you write a policy for every single thing that could befall a human, then rather than being inclusive, you could be shunning people who are thinking, well, is my diabetes less important than menopause? What is wrong with me that I can't have that policy as well? So what I'm saying is, I've made up a word. I suggest to businesses, why don't you menopausalize your current processes and stitch it into the ones that are in flight now, that people are familiar with, that they know about. So a great example would be return to work, a return to work policy, process, guideline, whatever you call it in your business. So I imagine most of the companies out there will have something like that. So it means that there's a trigger. If you're off sick, if you start turning up late, usually what would happen is you'd maybe sit down with you and your line manager and you'd have a discussion about what's been going on. So wouldn't it be brilliant, rather than writing a standalone policy, which seems very terrifying and scary, and it's, it's over there somewhere, I don't want to look at it, if you were to stitch menopause into that return to work policy, because the symptom is the absence or the lateness. As a manager, it's up to you to understand and find out what the root cause is. So if you stitch menopause, that could be the reason for that absence or lateness. Isn't that so simple? So if we start knitting things together and helping people see what's the same, not what's different. So somebody might be telling you in that return to work, they've got anxiety, they're really anxious. The number one symptom reported to me in the last 7 years, guess what it is? Anxiety. So again, people might say, I'm really anxious, I'm really stressed. The root cause could be menopause. So I want people to start understanding what's the same about what they've been doing for either forever or a very long time, not what's different. Because when you make it scary and terrifying, you're less likely to get people to buy in and embed that thing. But when they go, so I'm having a well-being chat and I'm maybe talking about mental health and well-being, menopause is part of that. Yes, it's part of that. And then most of the brilliant news is when we're talking about menopause, most of the things that your business may need to make a reasonable adjustment, you will probably find you already have them. Isn't that brilliant? So an example would be, if I disclosure of pregnancy. Now, I'm sure just about every business who might be listening today has got a pretty decent process policy guideline for the disclosure of pregnancy. So let's just imagine, Glads, you've both become my line manager and I want to disclose my pregnancy to you. So what might you do in that instance? Well, you might give me a car parking space near the office if you thought that was appropriate. You might do a workstation review and I might get equipment, a desk fan, a footrest. You might look at my uniform, for example. You might give me time off for appointments. So what I'm saying to managers and leaders of the world is this. All you have to do is look in your small reasonable adjustment toolkit that I know you've already got, and then flip and apply what's in there to the individual in front of you. So, and the other thing, it's really groundbreaking, this thought, but have a think about it. You could even choose to ask the person in front of you, Sharon, as a small reasonable adjustment, what do you think might help you? And I might say, well, could I get an access to a window that opens? Could I walk around the block for 5 minutes? Could I have a desk fan? One of the daftest things I heard, and it was when I was just starting out Miss Menopause. So I'm running down the office in this business, and a woman leaps out to me. She went, Sharon. She went, I think I'm menopausal. I went, all right, okay. She went, I get really hot. And I said, well, that's not an uncommon thing. So she said, I've spoken to my line manager, it was a he, and I've said I get really hot. And he said, he's checked the process, the policy, whatever it was called around there. He said, and he's checked the policy, and he said, I could have a fan, but only if I'm pregnant. So do you see what I mean? Common sense isn't often very common. So if we can help people to see what's the same, not what's different, because again, think about it. There's a separate policy for pregnancy, and a separate policy for menopause, a separate policy for mental health. And it seems divorced from each other. We've got to bring them all together and say, why, as a reasonable request, would you not do that? But that manager in that instance was reading it in a black and white way. It's on the list. It's not on the list. That's just madness. So if we can help people to have a more rounded, holistic view, if we can educate individuals so they can, because the other thing about menopause is every single person, whoever you are, whatever your circumstance, is going to have an absolute unique experience of menopause. So don't think because you've learned about menopause, because if you could say, for example, all Sharons born in 1968 who have a big problem with leopard print, I can't stop wearing it and buying it, we're going to have a menopause like this and you could manage it like that, then the world would be amazing. But guess what? You can't. And wouldn't you imagine that if anyone was going to have an identical menopause, it would in fact be identical twin sisters? No, met loads of them over the years. They've all had a unique experience. So you've got to take that individual. So my philosophy on managers and leaders is this. I don't believe they're paid to have all the answers, but I truly believe they are paid to listen. And every single person has their own unique story to tell. So you, as a line manager, as a leader in your business, you are paid to listen. So if you listen to my story, hear what I've got to say, you might say, well, Sharon, I've heard your story, and what I believe I can offer as a reasonable adjustment for you is A, B, and C. But the other thing that I want to make clear is I don't believe that managers, leaders, and organizations should do all the heavy lifting. What I'm always saying is it should become an equal active partnership. Because even if you're offering me the most incredible reasonable adjustments in the workplace, as the gift that keeps on giving, menopause is going to be with me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So what I'm saying is the biggest duty of care, yes, there's an organizational duty of care, that is true. If you're a manager or a leader, you have an element of duty of care. But I often say the biggest duty of care may wish to sit with me, the individual, because menopause is going to be with me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So again, what I'm saying organizationally is unless it becomes an equal active partnership where both individuals join in together, it's never going to work. So think about all of the things that you've been using as small reasonable adjustments for any of the other things that have cropped over the years, whether that be pregnancy, mental health, well-being, that you've got that toolkit that you can pick up and just apply to menopause. So we're not reinventing the wheel. We're not starting from scratch. So embedding menopause in the workplace is a lot simpler and easier than maybe you have ever imagined.
No, it's definitely food for thought. I think there will be some social care providers listening. We just seem to be in a time in social care where they all use very generic policies, and there'll be managers out there that think, God, how do I embed that into my return to work or into my sickness policy or maternity or whatever policy it is, just because it'll be off the shelf and not generic. And I think my advice for anybody listening tonight that is thinking that is that actually make sure you can customize those policies. And actually the regulator will be looking that you are customizing. We have had a question come in from Petros, which says, would you agree with a risk assessment in this case, if not a policy, just as to make it person-centered? What would your advice be around kind of risk assessing instead of a policy, Sharon?
Yeah, I mean, just think if we're putting the human at the center of what we're doing because we want to attract them, we want to keep them. Absolutely. Why, if you do risk assessments for other things, so I've worked with companies where they might call it a well-being passport, and what that means is they will do a risk assessment around a certain thing. So I would say, what do you do in your business today? Is that quite common practice? Could you pick that up and apply it to menopause? So, for example, you may look at your policy process that you have right now, and you may look at anybody who is classed with a disability, that when you're looking at your sickness policy, you discount those periods of absence if they are due to that disability. I've seen some companies say, we are going to apply that to menopause, for example, even though it's not covered by that Equality Act. Technically, it's your business. You can decide how you want that to be in terms of, is it a great place to work? So if you think that that would go down well in your culture and your business, then I don't see a reason why not, because you've got to ask yourself, why would I not administer any kind of small reasonable adjustment if it was going to help me and the person?
No, absolutely.
So go for it.
I'm pleased you brought up the andropause, Adam, because interesting. And I was digging through my 101 blinking NHS letters that the NHS seem to love, and I wish they'd email to say paper. But in one of them, when they were doing loads of tests on me, one of them was the male menopause, and big. None of the others are in like bold font, but I just remember distinctly that they had put that they would be testing for the male in big bold letters. But when I raised the long COVID research group I'm on, the amount of men that were on it that were saying that actually they'd also received very similar letters. And it just made me wonder, Sharon, whether you think actually by the NHS and society as a whole linking menopause to men, do you think that's going to have a positive thing for females? Do you think it will then make it more, do you think it will not take it away from females, but make it kind of less prevalent in the workplace? Or
for me, I just think it's been branded incorrectly. That's what I think. It's got the wrong name, because menopause is the end of your reproductive life. So if you think about it like this, for most women, their fertility will end usually no later than 55. Of course, there are exceptions, but in the main, most women, by the time they're 55, menopause will be upon them. In other words, their hormones have declined so much, they are no longer able to reproduce. Men, if everything is in full working order, a guy can father a child the day he drops down dead at 120. Do you know what I mean? It's not the same equivalent. So I absolutely accept that male hormones decline with age, but it's not en masse as a species. It's individualized to that individual person. And the percentages look around maximum of up to 10%. 10% is still a lot of men, of course it is. But what I'm saying is it's no competition with 100% of women, reproducing females who don't have a choice. It's, you don't wake up one day and think, oh, can't wait for that menopause thing to happen. And then I think what quite disturbs a number of women out there is they don't seem to appreciate that once you're menopausal for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. So you hear a lot of women say, I'm through that. So I don't think it has a positive or a negative effect. I think it's good to talk about anything that I'm like a sponge. I want to know about, things out there that I'm, maybe I'm never been exposed to. So talking about things like andropause, but I just think it needs to be rebranded differently. It's not the end of male fertility as a species. It's a thing, but it's not the equivalent of what we're talking about when we're talking about female menopause in that way. I think it has a place. Of course it does. It's about health and well-being. Everything to do with health should have a place. But I feel like somebody's made a lot of money and probably written a book and probably now has a Porsche and a big house because they've given it a name.
Well, because they're not going to be important for a change, so they need to create something to keep themselves prevalent.
I mean, I was going to say, I'm on the NHS website. They don't do themselves any favours. So it's listed under the conditions on the NHS website as male menopause. And then the first thing is there such a thing as male menopause? And
yes.
The first line it says is the male menopause is an unhelpful term sometimes used in the media, also known as, and I kind of think, well, why not call it andropause then and not male menopause? If you're the first to say it's an unhelpful term in the media, just making that stigma stick even more.
I was just going to say, Mark, they don't recognize it as such, but they still, like I say, the way they present it is odd. It's a bit odd. But maybe that's because people are searching for the term male menopause and then they'll find it that way. So I'm going to be kind and say maybe it's because of the way people are searching for it. They wouldn't know maybe the term andropause to search for, but they've heard maybe the term male menopause. So we'll let them off the hook about that. But yeah, like I say, I think it just needs to be rebranded, in my opinion.
So I've got so many questions that I want to ask, and it sounds daft, but I absolutely love this topic because I feel like I'm learning, like you say, as much as we can do to support the people in our lives, our team, our families. I don't want to ask the generic, what are the symptoms of menopause and what's perimenopause, because I feel like we can discuss that, on a different show or a different point. I want to ask some of the stuff that people might find beneficial. I mean, first off, I don't know whether you know any of these, but I do worry about refugees and people seeking asylum going through the menopause without true access to health service. That absolutely terrifies me. And it actually gets me upset thinking they don't have the access to these services. But then it also gets another thought running in my head. And culturally, how is the menopause interpreted in different cultures? Is it accepted widely through cultures, or are there cultures where it's one of those where it happens but we don't talk about it?
It's just, well, again, it's often hard to find, but there are some cultures where there's not even a word for the term menopause, say in South Asian cultures. There are others which are, so if you look at places like Japan, they almost...
I'm sorry, just to interrupt.
Yeah.
Just to interrupt. The reason why I'm asking this as well is we are, and I should have mentioned this, we are heavily reliant on international workers now in health and social. So our workforces are colourful and diverse and beautiful, but we need to take that into account. So that's why I'm asking whether there's something culturally that we need to consider in the workplace.
It's totally mixed. But I think because you've got that melting pot of different cultures, different experiences in a workplace, maybe that's why, unbeknown to me, I wanted to go into the workplace and try and educate. Because if you had all of those people who came to a session who were all from different backgrounds with different experiences and got to learn about this thing at the same time, wouldn't that be great? But for example, over in Japan and stuff, they embrace aging. So it's almost seen as a new beginning, menopause, where over in the West, we're kind of, oh, you're an old, crotchety, whatever. You know, if you even look at America, and again, if you look at lots of places, even in Europe, they are looking at the UK and saying we seem to be much further ahead about menopause than many even, you know, developed cultures. I think there's quite a bit of stuff happening now in Australia and things starting to happen in New Zealand. But it's a bit of a mixed bag, Adam, and that's why it's about listening to the individual story, hearing what they have to say, because the thing is with menopause, Adam, and this is the terrible thing about menopause. I think it's Father Nature, by the way. I don't believe it's a woman that can be doing this to us. But the symptoms of menopause, usually you will encounter them months and even years before you notice a change in your periods, if you're even having them. So if you think about it like this, in the 21st century, many women now are tapping into depot injections, Mirena coils, mini pills. They aren't even having regular periods. So how on earth are you supposed to know that what's happening here could be related to this menopause thing here? So it doesn't follow a linear process. So you can't say it's A, then B, then C. It can be D, C, A. Menopause doesn't follow a route. So you could find that. So that when I look back at me in my own experience, I started to get crippling anxiety. Now, I'm not a very shy, retiring type of girl. I never really have been. And I couldn't understand why, this was in my early 40s, why this was happening to me. I would be crying hysterically on the way to work. And I just thought it was work. And I think part of it was work, by the way. But I think it was the beginning of my hormones going on this roller coaster ride to get to menopause. And so that's what's really disconcerting. So you could be an individual who's never said you were mentally ill, mentally unwell, ever in your life up until this point. Then one day you wake up and you're terrified to leave the house, or the thought of driving to the shops might begin to seem utterly terrifying. So the most common thing that women say to me, Adam, on a daily basis is, I thought I had early onset dementia. So I would say, whether it's, you know, whatever culture you're from, you may wake up and feel completely out of sorts one day, 1 month, and not be able to have a clue what on earth's happening, especially if you're having regular periods, for example, or you don't have them anyway because you're on injections, Mirena coils, mini pills, etc. So if we can create an environment in our workplaces where we are educated and we educate each other and ourselves with our own stories. So I always say that the gold dust for me, Adam, is where you have a culture in your business where people can feel safe enough to tell their own story. Whoever you are, whatever you, and I think where it has to start, go back to, you know, a business, the most powerful thing and things I've ever seen in a business, whether they're a FTSE 100 company or a small company, is where the owner, the founder, the CEO, whoever is a really, we'll call them a senior influencer, that's what we'll call them, where they're prepared to stand up and show an element of vulnerability and share their own story to their people. And that, to me, whatever subject you're talking about, if you can hear, so you may be thinking, oh, Sharon, she seems pretty put together. And I'll tell you the story where I nearly died because I fell asleep at the wheel of my car when I'm driving at speed. And maybe I've got a business with 500 staff there and I look pretty put together. You know, I come into work every day. People maybe think, oh, Sharon's a machine. She does this, that, and the other. And I can stand there and tell you my human story that can only encourage others to think, well, it's maybe all right to tell my story or a bit about my story. And honestly, I keep going on about simplicity. Imagine if you were an owner, a leader in your business. So again, I'll tell you another daft story. I was working with his business. It was large business. And I did 3 or 4 years worth of work. And they were telling me about these health passports that they had. You know, we're talking about, should you do a review? Should you do whatever? I'm like, all right, okay. And I said, tell me about the health passports. Well, what that means is we sit down with our people. We're all managers here. And we sit down with our people and we get the health passport out and we get them to tell us all of this stuff about their health and well-being. And it goes on the passport. I said, oh, okay then. I said, I've got a question for you all. Right, all right. I said, how many of you as managers and leaders in here have written your own passport? Tumbleweeds. And then I said, and one or two put their hand up, and I said, and out of the very small handful of people who've said they have written their own, how many of you have shared it with your people? Like, what do you mean? And I said, well, how is this fair that I have to bare my soul to you because you're my manager and tell you maybe intimate things or things about my health and well-being that you're going to record on? Okay, it's my passport, but you're not prepared to do the same with me. I mean, how shocking is that? That you actually show an element of humanity back to your own people. That is what's going to make your business a great place to work. That is it. So I don't know why we can't all show a bit more humanity and a bit more vulnerability, because that tiny little bit of vulnerability you show will give you a whole lot more than you show it.
Absolutely.
You've stunned us.
She has. I've got do you know what? I'm conscious of time, but I've got so many questions that I wanted to ask, and I think we'll have to do a follow-up. And I've just been kind of listening, making loads of notes in terms of what you've spoken about, the questions that Adam asked, and like the responses that you gave, and just spin-off things. Like, I think the question around culture is actually something probably that many care providers don't even think about, even though we've got international staff. And I think it was a fantastic question to ask, Adam. But I think when you were talking earlier around suppliers, actually the clothing and the materials that all of our staff are wearing, and before we came live tonight, I was just talking to Adam about what I'd done on my day off with the kids, but like skincare and ointments for, like, if we're giving staff, you know, hand creams in a wellbeing hamper, or the people that we're supporting and what we're supporting them with, the impact that all has. I've got so many follow-up questions, but I have taken away one action today, which is, and in the background I did double check, and we don't capture menopause as a reason for absences. So I'm going to go away, and after the show tonight, email our head of HR and be like, let's do it. So that's my action for tonight. But yeah, I think it's been a really good show, and I absolutely love listening to you, as you know, Sharon. And yeah, we'll have to have you back just to scoop up the loose ends. But one thing I did write down that I really loved was your comment around that people don't know about menopause until it's faced. And in my head, I thought people don't know about social care until they face it. And then you spoke about menopause having tentacles and reaching into all angles of somebody's life. Actually, exactly the same as social care. So actually, as the largest employer of people in the UK, actually the two could go really hand in hand together and touch thousands of lives if we open our eyes and create actions of actually how we're going to do that as providers.
Yeah, and again, like I said, you get this double bite of the cherry. So once you're menopause for the rest of your life. So for example, my mother turned 75 last year, and for the very first time in 20 years began to get hot flushes for the very first time. I've met women in their 70s, 80s and 90s who are still telling me they are being negatively impacted by menopause. So if you know those things, and maybe you're working with those individuals, that could be some of the things that unlock a mystery to you or to them that you're working with, because you're better educated. You've got an idea. Oh, I'd never thought of that before. So that's what I say in this industry. I love working in the care profession, because I truly believe you can take information that you might get and you can mold it and give it back.
Yeah.
Adam, any thoughts from you?
I could listen to Sharon all night long. Every time you speak, I'm mesmerized and I'm enthralled. And if only I had to, it's not even, in fact, it's a month, isn't it? It's a month and a day until we meet and we can listen to you all over again at UK Care Week, because I just think it's so super important. I think it's essential that, and I think tonight is, and this isn't because of you, Sharon, at all, but usually our comments are flooded in the chat, and there's thousands of questions, well, not thousands of questions, I like to exaggerate, but tons and tons of questions coming through, 30, 40, 50 questions, and tonight we've had 2, and I can't help but wonder whether it's the menopause, I'm not going to ask a question. I'm scared. I don't know. I might say the wrong thing. I might ask the wrong thing. I might out myself as a bad employer. I might out myself as an ignorant person. Listen, we've said this many times on the Caring View. The only stupid question, or the only stupid thing about questions, is not asking them. You know, if you think it's a stupid question, I can guarantee you I probably asked it in the past. I probably put my foot in there, and I'm the first to say I might get something wrong when I talk. Don't hold it against me. I'm learning. And that's how we need to approach everything. Like Sharon says, with kindness, with compassion, with sincerity. And if you do that, if you get it wrong, you get it wrong. You'll learn and you can get better from it. But please do come down to UK Care Week and come and see Sharon MacArthur day one on our theatre. And after this, Sharon, if you stay on for like a minute or so for us to say thank you and goodbye, I do have another question to ask you, which will bring you to our listeners a little bit further, I am hoping, in the future. Sharon, absolutely a pleasure to have you here tonight. Like Mark, I have written down menopause, no reasons for absence. I've also put around not having a policy for it, and actually thinking to myself, yeah, how are we managing other conditions within our workplace? How are we looking at other conditions in our workplace? And how, I suppose one of the questions I wanted to ask, because I know I asked about reasonable adjustments, and we can potentially touch on this at a later point. But it's fine, I suppose, for people who work in offices, you know, open a window, give them a desk fan, and then do this. In social care, where you are in a bathroom giving someone a shower and it's steaming and it's hot, and you've got to keep the room hot because they get cold because they're elderly and they're naked and they're wet, and you are literally there trying to claw your uniform off. I suppose we've got a long way to go to think about what possible reasonable adjustments we can make for people working in social care in those situations.
Well, I say all the time, Adam, these are just top level things. I would say that when I work with an organization, this information I'm giving you, it's the start of something. What I hope it will start to do is to enable you to start generating some thought process about seeing the world through what I call a menopause lens. So every business is complicated. You know, you've got people just aren't sat, you know, everyone sits in an office and it's all perfect and this is what it's like. The world isn't like that. We know it isn't. So an example I will give you, it's not related to care at all, and it's not even related to menopause per se, but this is the whole thing about seeing the world through a different lens. So I was working with a train provider, and there was a guy, and he told me this brilliant story. He said he had a load of apprentices, like young people who they'd taken on these apprenticeship programs, and they were on trackside. He said there's a big gang of them, let's say 10 of them. He said, and there's this young woman, and I kept looking around, and couldn't find her quite a few times in the day. I couldn't see her. I didn't know where she was. And I said to the rest of the people, you know, where's such and such? So I went, oh, I don't really know. And one of them said, oh, I think she's gone to find a bathroom. And they were like, all right. Anyway, it turned out she was a young woman who was having really heavy periods, because remember, this stuff could apply to other things. We can take one thing and apply to different things. And he said because he'd only ever had young men as apprentices, he'd never thought about it. So she was having really heavy periods. She was taking herself nearly a mile down the road to try and find a cafe or a pub so she could go and find somewhere where she could go to the bathroom to change her sanitary products. And so that now, because of that, and again, you ask your people, what is your circumstance? What's it like to work in a situation like a hot, steamy bathroom? What do you think might help you? Ask the person. They will help you to get to the answer. So now what he does is he gets a porta cabin every half mile on trackside. Because if you're a guy, you know, he can stand against the wall. He wasn't too bothered. You know, guys just would get on with that. So he's made a small reasonable adjustment. There you go. It's problem solved. So you, as the owner, leader, influencer, manager in your business, have to take what you hear and you have to be able to mold it to your business. I couldn't possibly give a company everything that you could and should do, because I don't know your business as well as you know your business. And the people who know your business better than you are the people who are doing the job. So you ask those people and they will tell you, well, I think, so again, I'll give you another interesting example. So it's car manufacturers. So they're working on factory lines, you know, it's quite cold in the winter. So they get brilliant kit it was. But it was really, what they had is these hoodies that they had to pull over their heads. So they were pulling these hoodies over their heads when they were really hot. And then it was really difficult. Like, you know what it's like. You put a hoodie on, then you pull everything off when you pull it off. So the women working on the lines were like, well, I don't get hot all the time. I get hot flushes and I have to put a hoodie on, a hoodie off. They said, got a suggestion. Could we maybe, and I know it could be a health and safety risk, we've considered that, but could we have some hoodies that had a zip in them? So we've got some hoodies that they can just zip open and then zip back up. I mean, do you know what I mean? How small and reasonable, do you know what I mean? So don't think big and grand, think small and reasonable, and ask the people who are doing those different jobs about what in their circumstance might be better for them in that type of environment. And you'd be surprised, I'm sure, that they'll help you solve the problems.
Well, on that, which I think is I think it's a fantastic tip is listen to the people. They can tell you how to fix the problem and you just need to listen to them. I think it's spot on. Sharon, absolute pleasure having you on. I will say a goodbye to you after the show's finished. For anyone wanting to connect with Sharon, you can go to www.missmenopause.co.uk. Please do go check it out. Get some training booked in. Get yourselves menopause friendly, menopause aware, menopause champions. Come on, get yourself the menopause capital of your industry. Let's make this happen. Let's make it commonplace. Let's make it business as usual, as Sharon would say. Next week, Mark, what have we got on?
Next week is one of our monthly social care catch-ups. So there's not any guests. It's just you and I discussing kind of what's going on in social care. Yeah, there's been a few updates. So I did put a post out probably a few hours ago just regarding the capacity tracker, which is updating and changing, I think it might already have changed, so you might have noticed that. But yeah, there's a few changes coming down the line. So yeah, it'll be good to catch up on what those are.
And I think also next week it'd be good to discuss Ask WDS, the Adult Social Care Workforce Data Set, why it's still important, and the learning development something, whatever WDF was, is now this other thing where you're going to get your funding and your training. I think it'd be good just to touch on that because I think it's sort of taken the backseat a little bit at the minute. And I'm going to brush my hair before the next show as well because it is an absolute mess. This is The Caring View, www.thecaringview.co.uk. We are sponsored by UK Care Week, Prosperwell, Florence, CBAT, Log My Care, Artist Care by Artist Insurance Brokers, and Learningment and Health Automated. Please do go check out our fabulous sponsors. You can find them all through our website and everything else that we offer for free on our website. And do not forget to connect with Miss Menopause. Do sign up to UK Care Week, 19th and 20th of March at the Birmingham NEC. We are there for 2 full days. It's going to be an absolute joy. It's going to be so much fun. Mark and I are looking forward to not running around from stage to stage for a change, and we're looking forward to actually not being on stage for a change and having the fabulous guests join us and give you the wonderful insights into areas that you need to be thinking about. Menopause, we've got positive behavior support, we've got recruitment and retention, we've got greener care, we've got preparing for the CQC, we've got fixing social care. There's so much going on. So please do come down and spend some time with us and get involved. So until then, take care, stay safe, make menopause business as usual in your organizations. Be kind more than anything, please. Let's be kind, let's be civil. And we will see you next Tuesday live at 7:30. Good night.